Texas High Plains, late autumn of 1874. The sky bled out in 1,000 shades of red as if the sun itself had been wounded. A dry wind swept over the golden grass, whispering its secrets through the split cedar posts and barbed wire, stirring the dust into soft ghost trails. The land stretched wide and hushed beneath the dying light, vast and untamed. Where God had not been seen in a long time, on a gentle rise sat a weather-beaten ranch house, old timbers groaning in the wind. Inside, Jack Callahan sat by the window, with a heavy Bible resting on his lap. His fingers held a yellowed page open, but his gaze had long since drifted from the inked words. He stared past the glass, past the horizon. 38 years old and worn to the bone with grief, Jack had lived in silence for nearly a decade ever since fevers swept through one sweltering summer and took Lucy and their infant son without mercy. He didn't smile anymore, didn't speak unless the wind gave him cause. Yet every evening, as Lucy once asked of him, he read aloud from Psalms, even after she was gone, especially after. That was when he heard it. A knock barely there, like twigs tapping against the pane. Jack blinked, unsure whether the sound had come from memory or wind. Then again, 3 soft raps, delicate as a breath. He stood slowly, the old floorboards groaning beneath his boots. His rifle hung above the doorframe, untouched but always loaded. Out here, no one knocked after sundown unless they carried bad news or worse. He opened the door to twilight, and there she stood, a little girl, no taller than his hip, hair tangled and dust-woven, cheeks streaked with dirt and dried tears. Her dress hung in tatters, the color long lost to the trail. She clutched its frayed hem in both fists, her bare feet bleeding from sharp rocks and hard miles. Her voice, when it came, cracked like thin ice underfoot. "My daddy died today. Can we sleep in your barn tonight?" Behind her, slumped in the dirt like a broken doll, lay a young woman, her mother. She was unconscious, dress torn at the sleeve, legs scraped raw from walking through briars and stone, blood crusted at her temple, 1 foot bare, her chest barely moved. Jack's heart hammered. The child's eyes were clear, luminous, ancient in a way no 4-year-olds ever should be. He crouched slowly, joints stiff from long years of solitude. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he asked, voice rough and unused like wind across gravel. "Clara," she whispered, her lip trembling. "Mama fell down. She won't wake up." Jack glanced at the woman, pale and hollow with fever and exhaustion, but alive. "Your mama's name, Eliza," the girl said, swallowing hard. Jack didn't ask anything more. "Not yet. You ain't sleepin' in no barn," he said thickly. "You're home now." He lifted Clara with one arm, and with great care, gathered Eliza into the other. She weighed almost nothing, like her bones had started giving up. Her head lolled gently against his shoulder. Clara tucked herself against his neck without a word. Inside, the fire was little more than a glow, but the room felt warmer with their presence. Jack laid Eliza gently on the couch and pulled a clean quilt from the trunk. Clara he placed near the hearth, wrapped in one of Lucy's old shawls. He poured water from a jug and offered it to her in a wooden cup. She drank in silence, her small hands trembling. Then, as the cup slipped from her fingers, she looked up at him and said, "One more thing. I think Mama walked all day just for me." Jack had no words for that. None that would do. So he rested his calloused hand gently on her hair, fingers threading through the dust and tangles, and left it there until her shaking stopped. Outside, the wind quieted. Inside, something long frozen in Jack's chest stirred and breathed again. Eliza trembled in her sleep, feverish and tangled in half-formed dreams. Her body ached with every breath, her mind drifting backward past the flickering warmth, past the quiet man who'd carried her, back to the weeks before, when she still believed in a future. They had been 3 once. Daniel Grace, her husband, Clara, their daughter, and Eliza herself 24, barefoot with hope. Chasing westward winds, they'd left Missouri in spring, lured by tales of fertile land and a clean start. Their wagon was battered, but carried treasures, sacks of corn seed, a worn sewing kit, a shawl from her mother's wedding, and a wooden comb Daniel had carved on their first anniversary. Daniel had driven the wagon with calm, watchful eyes and steady hands. He rarely spoke, but when he laughed, it filled the air like him music. When he kissed her, he made her believe in mercy. But mercy had no place on the trail west. 3 days from the Dry Creek settlement, they entered a narrow pass where the mesquite grew thick. Cicadas hummed, then the world shattered. Gunfire cracked the silence. Horses shrieked. 5 riders charged from the brush, faces covered, rifles raised. At their head rode a man in a black hat with eyes like oil cold, endless. His name, she'd learned later, was Clay Dunn, a former Confederate turned outlaw, notorious for robbing settlers and freight wagons, leaving ashes and widows behind. Daniel had barely enough time to shout. Before the first bullet found his chest, Eliza saw him fall not in slow motion, not cinematically but like a tree felled with one clean swing. Blood splattered the canvas cover. His last breath was her name. She screamed, clutched Clara, tried to run. The men tore her away. Clay pinned her to the dirt and called it toll for travel. They laughed while she fought, her fingers clawing, feet kicking, voice raw. Clara, small and silent, hid beneath the wagon's shattered axle, trembling in the dust as her mother's cries echoed skyward. When Eliza awoke, the outlaws were gone. Smoke curled from the wreckage. Daniel lay face down beside the trail, his eyes open to the empty heavens. The wagon was charred ruin, the comb broken, seeds scattered like unanswered prayers. She could not bury him. She could barely stand. She kissed his forehead, whispered, "Forgive me," and walked away. She walked for days, each step a vow, each breath a burden. Hiding by day, traveling by night. Her boots gave out by the second day. Her feet blistered and bled. Clara wept. For her father, Eliza did not cry. There was no room left for tears. She sang instead, low and broken. "Hush, little darling, don't you cry. Mama's here and stars don't lie." On the 4th night, Eliza collapsed in the sand. Heat closed around her like a shroud. She told Clara to keep walking, to find a house, to knock gently. "Ask for the barn," she whispered. "Say please." Then she fell into blackness. Now she lay wrapped in a wool blanket near a warm hearth, her body twitching with memory, her face pale and drawn. Jack sat nearby, a knife in one hand, a Bible in the other. He said nothing, simply watched like a man who knew not to speak over pain that hadn't finished screaming. He moved quietly, lantern in hand, and laid a straw mattress beside the fire. He cleaned Eliza's wounds, her bruised hands and scraped palms. She didn't stir. Then he turned to Clara, wiping the dirt from her arms, dressing her raw feet in wool socks, still large, but warm dot from Lucy's old trunk. He pulled a faded cotton dress, then found the half-rusted sewing kit. His fingers were clumsy from years of mending fences and breaking horses, but he stitched the torn hem of Clara's dress, brown thread looping in awkward knots. The act calmed him. He hummed, soft and surprised, a tune Lucy used to sing. When he noticed, he stopped. Then, quietly, he kept going. By dawn, the stew pot bubbled over the hearth, the scent of onions and smoked chicken stirring something gentle in the air. Jack ladled some into a wooden bowl and set it near the fire to cool. Behind him, a small voice rose from the silence. "Is it morning?" He turned. Clara sat up, hair a wild halo round her face. "Near enough." He answered. "Where's Mama?" "Still sleeping. She needs it." Clara scooted toward the bowl. "What's that?" "Chicken stew. Old recipe. Did you make it?" "I did." She considered him a moment. "Can I have some?" "You may." He handed her a spoon. She ate with small, careful bites, her eyes flicking toward her mother between each one. "Do you live here alone?" she asked. "I do." "Some things change," he added after a moment. "Some things stay." She nodded as if that made perfect sense. Then, picking up a small wooden horse Jack had carved and left by the hearth, she asked, "You made this?" "I did. I like it. I hoped you would." She turned the horse in her hand. Then, certain as sunlight, said, "I'm gonna call you Uncle Jack." Jack blinked. Something inside him cracked, not painfully, but with warmth. "Well, now," he said softly, "I reckon that'd be just fine." And just like that, the long silence in his house didn't feel quite so empty. Eliza awoke with a gasp. hands clutching at blankets, lungs scraping for air. The ceiling above her was wood, not canvas. The air held no smoke, no screams, only stillness. "You're safe now, ma'am," a low voice said that. She turned sharply. Jack stood a few feet away, holding a tin plate with cornbread and a smear of blackberry jam. He didn't come closer, only placed the plate on a small table. Eliza looked around, dazed. Clara lay curled near the hearth, clutching a patchwork doll stitched together with scrap cloth. "Where are we?" her voice rasped. "My ranch. 10 miles west of Dry Creek," Jack said. "You've been sleeping near 2 days." She tried to rise, winced. "Don't push it," he said gently. "Eat, rest, that's all for now." Her stomach growled in answer. Pride slipped aside. She reached for the bread and bit into it slowly, eyes fluttering closed. It tasted like something almost forgotten. Days passed. Eliza began to mend, not fully, but in pieces. She asked to help. Jack simply handed her gloves and nodded toward the garden. She dug into the soil with quiet strength. She stitched saddlebags, mended harnesses. She did not smile often, but she stood straighter each day. Clara spent her time in the barn with a calf she named Buttons. Jack watched from a distance, giving her space, until the day she called out, "Uncle Jack, Buttons is licking my boots." Again, he laughed. One morning, he took her to the corral. A young paint pony stood within, white blaze and shaggy mane. "This here's Dusty," he said. "Gentle soul, still learnin'." Clara's eyes lit up. "She's mine," Jack smiled. "She's her own, but I reckon she'd let you ride." He lifted Clara into the saddle, guided her gently. "Hold your shoulders high," he said. "Trust her." The sun broke over the ridge then, soft gold spilling across the frost-tipped grass. And for the first time in years, Jack Callahan's house didn't feel like a tomb. It felt like home. Clara's laughter rose like birdsong after a storm, bright, clear, and so pure it split the stillness of morning like sunlight slicing through fog. It was not a careful laugh, nor one born of politeness or unease. It was wild, unburdened joy. Eliza stood by the fence, her hands clenched as if gripping the weight of her past. And when that laughter reached her, it pierced her like an arrow. Her knees nearly buckled. Tears came then, silent, relentless, and she pressed her hand to her mouth to stifle the sob that surged up. That sound, her daughter's laugh, real and unguarded, was something she hadn't heard in so long that she had forgotten how much she missed it. Not the laughter of forced courage, but of untainted happiness. And in that moment, the grief that had wrapped itself around Eliza's soul began to loosen. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was the first flicker of something close, a distant cousin of peace, perhaps. That evening, Jack found her on the back porch, folding laundry with movements slow and deliberate. The lamplight kissed half her face, casting the other half in quiet shadow. "She's strong," he said softly. Eliza looked up, eyes shining in the half-light. "Too strong for her years," she murmured. "She's not alone anymore." Jack's lips parted, a breath catching. He nearly said it, "Neither are you," but the words caught behind his teeth. Instead, he handed her a steaming cup of tea. Their fingers brushed for the briefest second, yet in that small, silent contact was a vow. Not spoken, not demanded, just felt. They sat without speaking, the prairie wind threading through the porch rails like a whisper. From inside came the sound of Clara, softly singing to her doll, off-key, but full of life. Beneath a sky salted with stars, Jack let himself feel something he hadn't dared in years. Hope, maybe, or perhaps the fragile beginning of love. Then came the storm, sudden, feral. The sky shifted from brilliant autumn gold to cold black in moments. Wind screamed across the plains, a voice of fury and warning. Dust rose in vicious spirals. Horses neighed in panic, hooves thundering inside their stalls. Jack dropped his pitchfork mid-stride and bolted for the barn. A scream ripped through the gale. "Clara's, Eliza," he bellowed, shoving open the barn door, which groaned on its hinges, nearly ripped off. Rain blasted sideways. Lightning strobed the world white. Inside, Clara clung to a support beam, feet slipping in the rising muck. Eliza knelt beside her, shielding her with her own body. Hair soaked and wild, face streaked with rain and mud. A rake had fallen against the door, trapping them inside. Jack heaved it free with a snarl of effort. Water slapped his back like fists. He reached Eliza first. "Come on," he shouted. She tried to rise, but her leg gave out. Clara screamed again, trembling, without hesitation. Jack scooped Eliza into his arms gently, as if she were made of glass, and reached out for Clara's hand. Together, the three of them fought their way through wind and fury toward the warm glow of the house. Inside, the fire roared to life in the hearth. Jack's coat steamed on the wall hook. He had laid out blankets near the flames, moving with quiet purpose. He handed Eliza a towel without a word and wrapped Clara in another. The child was already fast asleep, nestled deep in quilts. Her little fingers still curled around a soggy doll. Eliza sat near the fire, shivering. Her dress clung to her like a second skin, revealing bruises and old scars, marks of a past too cruel to name. Her lips trembled not from cold, but from something deeper. Jack crouched near the stove, stirring tea in silence. The fire cracked. The wind whispered against the windows. And then Eliza spoke. "He died protecting us," she said, her voice cracking with raw memory. "Daniel, my husband. We were heading west to start over. Dry Creek was supposed to be a new beginning." Jack didn't speak. "They came from nowhere," she went on, staring into the fire. "5 of them, guns drawn, laughing like it was all a game. He told me to run. He pushed us behind the wagon. I saw him fall. No sound. Just dropped." Her voice broke again. But she kept speaking, determined. "They took everything. Food, blankets, even my mother's shawl. They slit open the seed bags and scattered them like confetti." And then her breath hitched. "Then they came for me, her fists clenched white. I fought," she whispered. "God help me, I fought." But Clara was hiding. She saw it all. Jack shut his eyes, his chest tight with grief not his own. "I've never said that out loud," Eliza murmured. "Not even to Clara." She turned. Then, really looking at him, "I thought, if a man ever touched me again, I'd shatter. But you," her voice softened, "you never asked, never demanded. You just gave." Jack met her gaze, eyes full of sorrow and steady truth. "You held your child through hell," he said gently. "There ain't nothing stronger in this world than that." Eliza exhaled. Yours seemed to pour out in that single breath. Her hand brushed his as she reached for the tea. This time, she didn't pull away. Sparks flared in the hearth, throwing warmth across their faces. They sat, side by side, saying nothing more. A woman carrying 1,000 invisible wounds. A man who had lost too much to silence. And between them, a quiet that felt more like comfort than absence. Later that night, in a saloon thick with fiddle music and cheap liquor, a man named Clay Dunn lounged in the shadows. His face was older, his hair longer, but the scar across his jaw was unmistakable. He wasn't looking for gold, just mischief, just violence. And then he saw a child's dress pinned behind the bar, a sketch of a girl's face nearby, soft eyes, shy smile, something twisted in his gut. He knew that face. Firelight, screams, a settler woman who fought like a beast, a child cowering behind a wagon wheel. He thought they'd died. But here, now this changed everything. That night, Jack felt something shift. The horses stirred uneasily. The dust in the air didn't settle quite right. He saddled his horse and rode out to Greyfeather Ridge. There, Noah Greyfeather waited by a fire. Quiet, watchful. "I need you to keep Clara," Jack said. "Just for a day or two." Noah nodded. "She is safe with me. If I don't come back, tell her I loved her like my own. You'll come back. Asterisk. At the ranch, Jack prepared like a soldier. A bell beneath the front gate. Tripwires near the chicken run. A bear trap hidden beneath the porch mat. His rifle, loaded, waited behind the rocking chair. And then, he waited. Clay arrived just after moonrise, a phantom moving along the fence line. He stepped silently onto the porch. Snap. The trap slammed shut around his ankle. He howled. Jack emerged, rifle steady. One chance to drop the pistol. Clay pulled it only to be caught in a second wire, jerking the weapon from his hand. "You think you're clever?" Clay snarled. Jack's voice was steel. "I've seen men like you, in war, thought they were gods. They weren't. Just cowards looking for power. You gonna kill me? No, Jack said. Too easy. He kicked the pistol into the dirt and took the blade from Clay's belt. You're gonna walk to the sheriff and confess. And if you don't, there are men who'll remember your face. And their arrows are sharper than justice. By dawn, Clay was gone, carried away by riders who left no trail. Jack returned, weary but intact. He told Eliza everything. She said nothing for a long time. Then, softly, I thought I'd have to keep running. You don't, she rapped, her arms around him, trembling. Thank you for protecting what they tried to break. You saved me first, Jack whispered. Spring came soft to the Callahan ranch. Wildflowers crept to the edges of fields once ruled by silence. Chickens clucked, bees floated near windows, and Clara's laughter rang like wind chimes down the path to the barn. Jack and Eliza built something not born of vows, but of quiet devotion. Shared chores, tools passed hand to hand, tomato vines staked together. Jack taught Eliza to stitch leather. She showed him how to tie vines. Clara giggled at Jack's silly voices during bedtime stories. Nights were still. Jack never crossed her threshold without permission, never touched her except with kindness. But his presence filled every space, where fear used to live. One afternoon, Jack returned from the barn with a burlap-wrapped bundle. Inside was a saddle, small and carefully made, perfect for Clara and her pony. She squealed and hugged him so tightly he nearly tipped over. That night, Clara whispered to her mother, "Is Uncle Jack my new daddy now?" Eliza froze. Her eyes drifted to the porch where Jack sat polishing leather. She knelt beside her daughter. "He just might be," she said. Jack looked up then, and their eyes met through the glass. No words were needed. They understood. Winter arrived soft as breath. Snow blanketed the roof. The trees, the fields. Inside, the Callahan home pulsed with warmth, cinnamon and pine, firelight and stories. Clara tracked snowflakes with delight. Jack hammered the final nails into a new window frame, planting daisies in the sill because Eliza once said they were her favorite. "They'll grow here too," he promised. Then, one evening, hands trembling slightly, Jack stepped forward with a cloth-wrapped bundle. "I ain't good with words," he said, "but if you'll let me, I'd like to be your last home." Inside the cloth, a silver ring, simple and beautiful, forged from his father's only coin. Eliza's breath caught. She couldn't speak. She didn't need to. She nodded. He slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her quiet, sure, and deeply true. Clara burst between them, arms wide. "We're a family now." Jack lifted her, laughing, and Eliza wrapped her arms around them both. Outside, the snow whispered through the trees, and in the heart of a land once filled only with sorrow, love had found a way to stay. This was not just a story of survival. It was a story of healing, of a woman who never thought she'd feel safe again, of a man who believed his heart had died, of a child whose laughter opened a door, and of a home built not by promise but by presence, by patience, and by the quiet, stubborn strength of love that lasts.